Hello and welcome back to On The Shelf. Again, I'm going to go with a different style of video. Probably not groundbreaking in any sense, but it's something that I haven't done before. So, today, we are going to rank Shuzo Oshimi Manga. Shuzo Oshimi is one of my favourites, if not my favourite mangaka. He certainly has my favourite manga art in all of manga, and he produces some of the craziest and probably most outlandish manga I've ever read. And there's series that I've listed here that are among some of my top 10 manga ever. So I might do a kind of revised top 10 manga list in the near future, but if you're interested in what my top 10 manga was from my previous video, then I will link that now for you to go and check out. In the meantime, if you enjoy this video, you enjoy this style of video, then I can certainly do it again, but with different manga artists. But yeah, with enough kind of waffling on from me, let's get to it. To begin with then, as always, this is my opinion, and there's a couple of series by Shuzo Oshimi or one-shots that I haven't read, so not everything he's put out is officially released in English. To start off with, for those, we have Superfly, which is kind of a one-shot about someone who becomes the size of a fly. I've seen that in passing, but I don't remember enough about it to rank it. Similarly, Midnight Paranoia Star and Yutai Nova are kind of earlier works that we don't have any English release for. And then Sweet Poolside, so at the time of recording this video, that has been licensed, but I don't have it yet, so we can't include that in the ranking either. Of all the other series, I have read them and I own them, so I will do my best to kind of fit them into some sort of ranking order, and I'll give a little overview of what they're about and my general thoughts as well. So coming up in last place, we have Miss Kusakabe. So I got this from Dempa. They did like a limited release of these for like Comic-Con conventions in America, but I ordered them online. And as much as I love Shuzo Oshimi, hence the reason why I had to kind of own this, this was my least favourite of his works that I've read so far. So it's kind of a really weird one-shot about a guy in a kind of a toxic relationship with this girl. We don't get a lot of context as to what's going on, and the ending is just really ambiguous, and I don't really understand what Oshimi was going for with this, and if you've read it you'll understand, and I think for that reason that's why it sits at the bottom. And then at number 11 we have Avant-Garde Yumiko. So I'm trying to think of how I can explain this without having my channel kind of demonetized. It's about a young girl who is coming into adolescence, and she's obsessed with a particular male body part, shall we say. It's almost like that scene from Superbad where he just can't stop drawing them, if you know what I mean. She wants to draw them, and she enlists the help of a fellow student at school to pose as a nude model for her to kind of draw. And this is like, there's a few of the series on this list where Shuzo Oshimi kind of often delves into more sexual themes and things like that, and I get what he was going for with this. So the whole point is that the protagonist is growing up, she's becoming more sexually aware, and for that reason he's kind of done it in a symbolic way. And yes, it is quite funny in parts, but the issue that I had with this is that the protagonist is underage, and I found it a little bit creepy. I think that's why that sits so low, and I think you'll kind of agree with me. But if you're a diehard Oshimi fan, then you're probably going to buy this anyway. So coming in at number 10, we have Waltz. So this is the second of those one-shots that Dempa released. This one arguably better than Miss Kusakabe, but again, not fleshed out enough. It's about someone who, this young boy who likes to dress up as a girl, and he befriends a girl at school who kind of helps him come to terms with that realisation. I think that Welcome Back Alice does a much better job than this series, but I imagine that this one-shot kind of inspired Welcome Back Alice to some extent, or it was him testing the waters for that kind of story. So yeah, I'm glad I own this, but nothing groundbreaking. And then in the number 9 slot, we have a one-shot that I read online called Lily. So this is his best one-shot in my opinion, just because it's really weird, and I read it and just kind of couldn't believe what I was reading at the time, which is great. You know, you always want something a bit new and interesting. But it's about a guy essentially who is obsessed with a porn star, and he's met the porn star in real life. She works in a bookshop, and he kind of not follows her, but kind of looks at her every time he goes in there on purpose to kind of visit her, and then he watches her videos online when he gets home. But the interesting thing about this, and I won't spoil it, if you can read it online, please do, but obviously, you know, it's very explicit, so don't watch it if you're underage. But yeah, it has a very odd ending again, and just, I have no idea what he's going for with some of these stories, so that's why that sits pretty low on my list. But I would quite like that to get some sort of English release in a short format. Maybe they could do like some of his unlicensed stuff in a little collection. I think that would be great, just to give us a chance to kind of own that in a physical way. So the next two I definitely kind of rate fairly similar. For my number 8 spot, I put Drifting Net Cafe. So I've done a whole review on this. This is a series that I've not heard a lot of people talking about, and it's probably for the reasons that I expressed in my video. It's about people who, they're in an internet cafe. So back in the day, you would have to kind of visit a cafe to go and use their internet if you didn't have a computer at home. This whole cafe kind of gets isekai'd into another world, and it sort of explores the human interactions a bit like Lord of the Flies. So when they're trapped on an island, what they'll do in that situation. And obviously the worst of humanity is brought out in those situations. But that was a really uncomfortable series for me, and I won't really say any more about it. I would urge you to go and kind of watch that review and make up your own mind for yourself, but sometimes Oshimi goes too far, and that was certainly one of those times for me. For similar reasons, at number 7 I've put Devil Ecstasy. So this is about a guy who visits a brothel, and the brothel is owned by these, I want to say demons? It says on the back, sexy demons. So we'll go with demons. I don't really know what he was going for with this. This to me is just like really messed up sexual kind of fantasy, I guess. I don't really go in for these kinds of series. I've definitely bought this just because it was another Oshimi manga, and it's not one that I would recommend to someone who probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone, because you'd think I was crazy if you knew that I owned this. But there's some laughs in this. It's pretty funny in parts, but really explicit and definitely not for everyone. So now I feel like we're coming up to the stuff that is easier to recommend. It's definitely the more popular Oshimi stuff. These next ones are all ones that I really like, so I feel like a lot of the list is stuff that's for hardcore fans, and you know, just to see where he's kind of come from, what kind of background he's got, and what other sorts of stories he's produced. But these ones are the ones that I think are the staples and are the ones that everyone should read who is interested in Oshimi stuff. For number 6, I've got Shino Can't Say Her Name. This is a really nice series actually for Shuzo Oshimi. It doesn't have anything too weird in it. It doesn't have anything too out there or explicit in any way. It's just a really nice story, and it's all contained in this one volume. So it follows this protagonist who starts high school, and she has trouble saying anything. So she kind of goes a bit mute when she's nervous, can't really make friends, she can't really introduce herself in class. And yeah, it was just really interesting actually, because Shuzo Oshimi said that this was based off of his own experiences. So when he was in middle school, he struggled to speak as well, and I think he kind of was a bit mute when he was in school. I think it's just kind of an interesting dive into that kind of setting, environment. It's a little bit similar to A Silent Voice, but definitely not as good. But if you like those sorts of stories and you're interested in what Shuzo Oshimi has to offer, then yeah, I would recommend Shino Can't Say Her Name. And then in number 5, and I definitely think that this has the potential to move up within the list, but it's currently being licensed, I have Welcome Back Alice. Welcome Back Alice is about Yohei, Kei and Yui, who were friends at school. One of them moves away, and then when they go to high school, they come back, but they come back as Alice, so they come back dressed as a girl. So again, similar to Waltz, it has that kind of same sort of exploration of like sexuality. In particular, our main character in this is in love with a girl from school, but he's also kind of romantically involved in a sense with Alice, and that makes him question his sexuality. And I just think this is really interesting. I'm only 3 volumes in, and I've heard a lot of people hate on this, and I've heard a lot of people really enjoyed this, so it's definitely quite a divisive manga. But it showcases for me what Shuzo Oshimi does best, and that is to create thought-provoking manga, something that you will not kind of know which way it's going to go. And I just really love this. I feel like I absorb the volumes as they come out, and I'm really looking forward to where this goes next. Okay, now we're coming to the top 4. So these are all what I feel are essential reading for Shuzo Oshimi fans. Starting off, we have Happiness. So this purely sits at number 4 because I think the ending isn't bad, but it completely changes midway through. So this is a vampire manga series. It's a bit gory, it's a bit gross. It starts off really, really interesting, and in my opinion, this has the best artwork of any Shuzo Oshimi manga. I think it has a really cool mix of styles. There's lots of different things going on. The way he depicts certain things is just amazing. But then there's like a time skip midway through, and it follows a completely different direction. For that reason, I commend it. I think, again, it did something I didn't expect, and yeah, I really love it. And it still sits high up there, but I just think the other series that I'm going to talk about next are arguably better than this one. Don't let that put you off. Please read this. And if I was to recommend a series to anyone by Shuzo Oshimi to read first, it would be between this and Shino Can't Say Her Name. So please go and check it out if you haven't already. And then at number 3, we've got Blood on the Tracks. So this just sits at number 3 because it's not finished at the moment. I've heard that this is, we're at volume 11 or 12 now, and I've heard that he's only just kind of getting into the prologue of the series. So it's going to be his longest series that he's ever written, and that really excites me because it's one of his best. It is about a mother and son relationship that is very toxic, and that is all I will say about it. I think you should go in blind to this series. That's the best way to enjoy it. Absolutely amazing storytelling, and it's some of the most gripping manga that I've ever read. But as I say, I couldn't put it any higher than number 3, purely because I don't know whether it's going to do a crazy time skip midway through and completely fall off a cliff. Yeah, sorry for that. I had to kind of put that joke in there. Then at number 2, I just finished this recently. I absolutely loved this. This was Inside Mari. So this is a body swap manga, a little bit like Freaky Friday. Our main protagonist is transported inside the mind and body of Mari, and he has to come to terms with what it is to be a woman. I believe in the beginning of the manga there's a little bit written by Shuzo Oshimi where he's kind of said something quite interesting. So he said something along the lines of, people will only ever experience half of the world, because you're only ever going to understand what the world is like from a male perspective or a female perspective, and you're rarely going to get that insight into what it's like to be the other. And I think that was his way of kind of exploring what he would do perhaps inside the body of a woman. For that reason, obviously there is some kind of like pervy stuff in this. You can kind of gloss over that, I think, because at the root of it is a mystery. It's a core mystery fantasy about why this has happened, why this body swap is going on, and how our main protagonist can get back to his original body. Yeah, really interesting, really thought-provoking, and actually it had a fantastic ending. So there's only 9 volumes total. All of them are out now by Dempa. And yeah, now's the best time to go and pick this up if you haven't already read it. And last but not least, I'm sure you've guessed it already, in my number 1 spot we have The Flowers of Evil. So I'm lucky enough to own these in the beautiful single volumes that were released by Vertical, but there's also some omnibus releases that you can go and check out. This was a series that for the longest time it made me really anxious to read it because I'd heard a few things about it. I was a little bit wary because it seemed a little bit perverse. And it is, and it seems a little bit creepy. The art style seems a bit weird, and you can really see Oshimi's art style develop over the 11 volumes in this series, because it starts off a little bit shaky, I would say, and then by the end it's his staple style that we're used to. But essentially in this series we have a young male protagonist who is in love with a girl at school, and then he meets another girl at school who catches him doing something quite embarrassing, and she blackmails him. So she blackmails him into doing whatever she wants him to do. Some of those situations are really uncomfortable and awkward and put him in a really difficult spot with the girl that he likes. But I think it perfectly encapsulates what it's kind of like to grow up. Things are awkward when you're at school, things are uncomfortable at times and embarrassing when you're young. And for that reason, it's a perfect manga in my opinion. It's really, really good. It's really different to anything else that I'd read up to the point of reading this manga, and this solidified Oshimi for me as being one of my favourite mangakas, and hence why I've gone out and bought everything else that he's got printed in English. Just go in blind and see how you feel. I would recommend getting the omnibus editions because you can get more volumes and you will absolutely fly through it, and if the first omnibus doesn't grip you, then it probably isn't for you. So that about wraps up my ranking of Shuzo Oshimi manga. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this different kind of style of video for me, and please let me know if there is any other series, any other mangakas that you want me to kind of do this ranking for. I think that could be really fun, and I will certainly be coming back with my usual style of videos, but I just want to mix things up a little bit and see how it goes. With that being said, I hope you had fun. I certainly did, and until next time, peace.